houseless, cozy community coat and blanket drive. All you have to do is drop off new or clean, gently used winter coats and blankets in the KBLA lobby during business hours. Now through December 20th, all of the coats and blankets will be donated to unsheltered individuals and families experiencing houselessness. Simply bring your donation to 4434 Crenshaw Boulevard in Los Angeles, near Vernon Avenue, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays. That's 4434 Crenshaw in historic Leimert Park. During the holidays and every day, let's remember, we keep us safe. We keep us warm. We are the safety net. And together, we can cover the unsheltered. Get caught up in the spirit of the season, the spirit of love. Make a difference with your friends at KBLA Talk 1580.
Super. Good. Inglewood. Purple rain falling down on the prince of the coast where the sun shine all year round. Purple haze over landscape, still I hydrate in the lunch line with the smog and clouds. Wood, start me out. This song's in the key of life, and love is in need of more. Young from Inglewood, barefoot on the cedar floor. If black music is the blood, then my heart has been beating more. Rapidly, happily, I look back on a Afeni Shakur. Her son paved the way. Now all eyes on me, cause I'm young, black, and gifted. Nina, all eyes gon' see. If you swung back when faced with a challenge that's meant to break you and balance scales, you ain't average. Now throw your hands on three. Gon' put them up for black magic.
Black excellence, black habits, this black medicine, everything
black chucks, black tucks, everything.
Everything
black hug, black love, everything.
Praise black Jesus, play like Moses. Give them flowers while they still give black roses. Everything
black tie, black ride, everything.
Everything
black pride, black lives.
KBLA Talk 1580. Black. It's time to talk about reparations. We do this every Friday. I call it Freedmen Friday. A lot of folks say freedom, but I say freedmen, which is what we were designated after the Civil War. Whatever you call it, it's time to talk about reparations in all of its aspects, all of its factions, and all of its history, because we are going to be well-read, well-fed, and ready to be part of making this happen. So I'm happy to welcome into the space the Vice President of R.J. Myers Publishing and Consulting Company. It is a minority-owned business. She's a national co-chair of Black Women for Positive Change. And she is the author of Invisible Queen, a book about Queen Charlotte, the mixed-race queen, I'd call her Black Queen, of England for 57 years. Dr. Stephanie Myers, welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the welcome, and enjoying listening to your show, as always. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Well, you know, we mostly have focused on American reparations on this show. U.S. reparations, we're in the hunt. California leading the way. Many cities were well over a dozen now. Cities with reparations commissions, and I think we're at 3 or 4 states. There's a petition going on right now at reparationsunited.org to try to get President Biden to, by executive order, sign an H.R. 40-like measure that would create a federal study. So the momentum is real, even with the setbacks in California, here in the U.S. But what we haven't talked as much about is reparations globally, and particularly when it comes to the UK and some other European nations. Of course, you have made a particular study in your work around Invisible Queen on the British royals. And I was interested to see that Jamaica is making moves to get rid of King Charles, to get rid of the monarchy there. He visited there, and he visited, just as when he visited Australia, it set off a whole conversation about whether he should even be king. And I would imagine the next step is what debt is owed.
Absolutely. Well, I think that this every Friday discussion you're having on reparations is so important because we really have to get people to realize that this is not a new idea. The idea of people being repaired for damage is not anything new. And a lot of people, even today, when I bring up the subject of reparations, a lot of people, fall back, like they think it's something wrong with that concept. Well, we have to simplify it. We have to realize when people get divorced and they get alimony, that's a form of reparation. If you're in a car accident or someone robs your house or something and you find out who they are and you sue them, that's a form of reparations. We've even got people celebrating this horrible murder in New York with Luigi Maggioni. He was coming saying, the health insurance industry is treating us bad. I'm going to whack the guy. Reparations. So we've got to start with the idea that this is something that has gone on for ever since the legal system was put in place. And in terms of England was one of the very first countries to institute reparations in several ways. The first thing they did was they exported all these indentured servants, the poor working class of England, the Scottish, the Irish. They were sent over here to America in the 1600s, 1700s as indentures. And after 7 years, they were given land grants, 50 acres of land, a minimum. That's a form of reparations. They were working and they were paid. The white indentures, now obviously our ancestors, the enslaved black indentures, did not receive land grants from England the way that these people did. A second area that England also did was after the after the Revolutionary War and after slavery stopped in 1883, England then provided reparations again to all the plantation owners who had lost their property. So England paid the plantation owners in the West Indies.
And by property,
and
we mean people, right?
Yes, absolutely. They paid them because they had so-called lost their property. So this is not a new strategy.
And, and I knew that Haiti had to pay France when they had their revolution and freed black people there. But it was only recently that I found out that England paid reparations to plantation owners and slaveholders. But yet, they were all of these far-flung places with black people where the slave labor brought an immense wealth to the crown through the harvest of various crops and the unpaid labor, the mining of precious metals from Africa to Jamaica to India. They now are no longer considered colonies, and even those that still have the affiliation are considered part of a Commonwealth. To me, Commonwealth is colony light.
Absolutely. And England, when you just look at the wealth of the royal family today, the billions of dollars, which is legacy money handed down through the generations. So, yes, they have a definite responsibility, and we have to continue this research. Even in South Africa, Dominique, South Africa paid apartheid victims. Now, they didn't pay them very much. They paid them $4,600 in 2003. But South Africa did pay that money. So we need to remind this new, I don't know what you call him, the stand-in president or what Elon Musk is right now, but he's from South Africa. And if his country paid apartheid victims money as a restoration or a reparation, we need to remind him of what England owes and what America owes to the $12.5 million black people that were forcibly moved around the world.
Dr. Myers, judicially affirmed in the chat, says murder is not reparations, and that's why I said when you said about Luigi, I can never remember his last name, who murdered the CEO of HealthNet. I understand why people are making him a hero, because our healthcare system is actually killing people every single day, killing people in droves. We need healthcare for all, but I don't I don't know that I'd call that reparations, because what does it actually repair?
Oh, it's not. It's horrible what he did. I'm just saying that people these days are so crazy. They're actually interpreting it to mean that. But no, absolutely. Maggiano, or whatever his name is, Luigi Maggione, should never be heralded as a hero. We should never be saluting violence as something that should go on. That's absolutely wrong. I was totally disgusted that of
Mangione is his name, Mangione. Thanks, Dion.
Yeah. J.D. Vance invited this guy who murdered the young black man on the train in New York City, invited him to the game last week, the Army-Navy game. Here they took a man who'd been convicted and then freed of murder and brought him to the Army-Navy game with the newly elected president, like it was a position of status.
Yeah.
See, we have a culture of violence in America. And as you were saying earlier with your earlier guests, the W people can get away with all these things while the black people go to prison for a lifetime.
Yeah.
So, no, I was not in any way heralding what Luigi did.
Yeah.
But I was just pointing out that we've got this craziness in our culture right now where they don't want to apply the same system to us, and this is not anything new, obviously,
right,
to what they do to themselves.
Well, and I understand why people are making him into a hero. It's because the people are suffering, and they see him as a symbol. I just don't think you get to walk up and kill people, no matter what your cause.
No.
I just don't think you get to murder people. But, we're going to continue this because I don't know if y'all are tracking it. I remember when Dick Gregory was alive, he used to talk to me all the time about the Queen of England and how she was actually one of the richest people in the world, and quiet as it's kept, controls a huge landmass, and they have all these jewels and diamonds on their crowns. Well, where do those jewels and diamonds come from? I think we might be looking at a day of reckoning for the monarchy in terms of the pillaging that they've done, not just of Africa, but of actually, their culpability for enslavement, not just of the taking of resources, but of the garnering of wealth through slave labor and what is owed. I want to get into some specifics when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Somebody bring out the confetti, baby!
Starting Monday, January 6th, KBLA Talk 1580 has a new midday lineup.
I'm excited!
Are you ready for Tavis Smiley, Dr. Cornel West, Jesse Jackson Jr., D.L. Hughley, and E. Quarterly Corte back-to-back?
Oh, my God!
Are you really ready for all this smoke?
I'm ready, brother.
Yes, we still have Dominique DiPrima in the mornings and Zoe Williams in the evenings, but middays just got lit on KBLA Talk 1580.
We on fire.
All across America, people are talking about our new midday lineup. Starting Monday, January 6th, our KBLA 1580 app downloads are on fire because everybody's going to be tuning in.
Yes, I love you guys. You are the bomb.
Now would be a good time to hit up SMB at KBLA1580.com if you want folks to hear about your business or brand. That's SMB at KBLA1580.com. It's going up in 2025 on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's going up.
That's what I want.
Always night pads are designed for a perfect night's sleep, so you can do your bear hugging a pillow thing, your free falling starfish thing, your burritoed in a blanket with the AC blasting thing. While Always night pads with rapid dry do their we've got your back with fast absorbency and up to 10 hours of protection thing. So while your period's doing its own thing, Always lets you do your sleep thing. Shop for Always in-store or online, wherever you get your pads.
Whoa, it's you, the Capital One Bank guy.
That's what they call me.
Mind if I get a selfie?
Yeah, sure thing. Say no fees or minimums on your Capital One checking account.
Wow, that's a keeper. So, where are you heading?
I'm off to spread the good news that Capital One helps people keep more money in their wallet with no overdraft fees.
Oh, you're the best Capital One Bank guy.
Hey, mind if I get a selfie?
Sure.
Say, Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One N.A. member FDIC.
On behalf of the Ayers family, KBLA Talk 1580 announces the public funeral services for our very own Robin Ayers on Saturday, December 21st, 12 noon, in the living room at the Faithful Central Bible Church, 400 West Florence Avenue in Inglewood. Robin will be sorely missed by all who knew her and the many lives she touched. We will hold on to our fondest memories forever. Family and friends are invited to come celebrate Robin's joyful life Saturday, December 21st at 12 noon in the living room at Faithful Central Bible Church, 400 West Florence Avenue in Inglewood. KBLA Talk 1580 extends sincere condolences to the Ayers family. Robin will always be in our hearts. The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
The conversation continues with Dr. Stephanie Myers talking about reparations in the when it comes to the British Crown, the monarchy of England, which has garnered tremendous wealth from all around the world. I think one of the biggest diamonds in the world they took from India. They still have that, and India wants it back. So far, King Charles, who succeeded his mother, has refused to even directly apologize. He expresses so-called regret. And I don't know if that's because of liability or whatever, but he has said we can't change the past. When asked if the Crown should pay reparations, he has said we can't change the past.
Well, that's outrageous. The past has to be changed and compensated for all the time. The Slave Compensation Act that British used to pay those enslavers, they paid them billions of dollars. And so they knew that they could do that. And that was paying them for compensation because the enslaved people were released. Well, back in 1993, we had a project started, the Abolish project. And that was where this man was trying to, Bernie Grant, he was in Britain. He was trying to get Britain to pay the reparations for slavery. And he put together an entire movement. Now, he died in 1990, I believe. But we need to go back and take a look at this Abuja proclamation and the Africa reparations movement, because he started it. It was a real aggressive Pan-African effort to get reparations to the enslaved people all over the world. And we need to renew that effort. I don't know if in your Friday conversations this is something that has come up as an effort to go back and look at what he was doing. But he was talking about using lawful means to get reparations for enslavement across the diaspora, to get the return of the artifacts. You were just talking about the diamonds, to use lawful means to get back the art, the history. So much of our history is in museums in England, and we should have that. And at the very least, the apology that you've been referring to. So we just have to get specific, and we have to focus. And one of the things, Dominique, I think that all the listeners must do, they've got to document their personal history.
Yeah.
It's
well, yeah, just let me just jump in here for a minute. We have, as I mentioned, been focusing on American reparations because most of us are American descendants of enslaved persons in this country. Whether you want to call it Freedmen or Negro or ADOS or FBA or whatever, we're Black Americans. But I think it's important and interesting to look at where this wealth went and who else might owe reparations. We've talked about the U.S. government at the city, state, federal, and county level. We've talked about banks and private businesses, particularly insurance companies, who made a bundle off of our enslavement. We've looked at educational institutions, which are now starting in some isolated cases to acknowledge and pay reparations, like Georgetown, which has found the descendants of the people they sold to save that university and is offering them free admission and other kinds of reparative resources. This is the first time we talk about England. Last year, King Charles said that he was going to back research into the royal family's role in enslavement. They've allowed access to the royal household archives for this 3-year investigation of the monarchy's connections to slavery, which goes all the way back to the 17th century. So this represents a bit of a concession. He hasn't come out and said, he hasn't ruled out reparations, but he hasn't made a direct apology, and he has not outright endorsed reparations. And an apology is not enough. California apologized, but it's a start.
Absolutely, and I'm very proud of the leadership that California has taken in this area. But King Charles should just be ashamed of himself. Here he has a black daughter-in-law, and he's got children, grandchildren now that come out of the history of our country and who we are. And he needs to make this stuff right, because this country and this world is coming apart at the seams. The violence in England over disparities and people who are poor and people who are immigrants into England has become very intense. And so these countries that have had this kind of monarchical approach to government or democracies, they have to realize they have to play fair, and they have to begin to return back to us what we're entitled to. And King Charles has a great opportunity to be a great leader in this, because England led the slave trade. It wasn't just England. We know Portugal and Spain and other countries were involved as well. But it was really England and the ship owners who were the leaders of most of that trade. And they just have to acknowledge it, and they know it. They know the truth of it. When Queen Charlotte was on the throne, she advocated for the end of slavery, and they passed a bill in 1807, which did end some slave ownership in England. It was another 30 years before they ended the slave trade, and she wasn't the queen any longer at that time. But she knew it was wrong, and she fought with the Parliament to get them to end slavery in England, and that was part of her legacy. So England knows that it's been wrong, and we just have to find specific ways to get them to pay back. And I raised earlier the whole issue of the indentured getting land grants. I really think we should point to that as a model, because between the plantation owners being compensated and the indentured white servants getting land grants after working for 7 years, those are two solid examples that we should stand on and say that our ancestors are entitled to either individual payments or down payments for their homes or scholarships for the kids or whatever form it's going to take.
Right. So, but if you look at, we're talking about England, that's not going to be my kids or your kids or necessarily our ancestors, but it is, it's black people, and it seems to be a debt that's owed. And I think I mentioned jewels and the exploitation of labor throughout the colonies, which are now the Commonwealth. But there's more to it than that, right? The royal family, we only have 3 minutes till news, traffic, and sports here. But there were, throughout the history of the royal family, they have directly owned slaves, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you say it's not our kids, the royal family empowered British slave owners to come over here and who owned plantations over here. And they were sanctioned. One of the ancestors in my family from the eastern shore of Virginia was owned by Scarborough, a British man, Edmund Scarborough, and he owned the biggest plantation on the eastern shore, and he was British, and his brother was a doctor to the king. So we can show connections not only in the UK, but around the world of where they owned, the British owned our people, and those people are entitled to reparations also. Even though we were not physically in the UK, we were in Jamaica, we were in America, we were in Australia and New Zealand. Our legacy is real in those areas as well.
That's a great point, and I've loved that you've traced your ancestry so specifically. We've only got 2 minutes here, but you were starting to say all of us need to investigate our family trees, and I think the holiday is a great time to do that.
Absolutely, and these DNA samples that people can get on Ancestry and these various organizations, I'm not advocating any particular company, but it's really, really valuable because I can trace my lineage to a number of states, Florida, Virginia, where slavery was just huge. And anytime you can find an ancestor who was pre-1865, you can just about know that he was or she where they were enslaved. There were a couple of free men, but overall, if you can go past 1865 in your DNA, and then, of course, it will take you back to Africa, where you know what country you had origins in. Now, Dominique, I'll raise something controversial, and I don't know how people feel about this, but in some cases, if we could get some of the African nations to also provide us with land grants in exchange for the fact that our ancestors were facilitated in their slavery. We had people who were sold, and in some instances, the chiefs of various tribes sold the ancestors from neighboring tribes. My people are from Cameroon, and they were probably picked up there by stronger, more powerful tribes from other adjoining countries. So maybe we could have a sample of how some of our African nations, and Ghana has been terrific with welcoming people home. And it's not in the form of being an apology for slavery or anything. They're just welcoming us back. And I know you go over to Africa every year, so you're the expert on Africa more than I am. But it would be great if Africa would take a step too and say we apologize for those instances where our tribes help to facilitate the sale of other tribes.
Yeah, I think we're moving in that direction. We've got news, traffic, and sports right here. Then we'll continue our conversation with Dr. Stephanie Myers on KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Natasha Williams. Here's 4 things you should know from BIN News. The Maryland Department of Health has announced $19 million in funding to expand primary care access in underserved areas. The funding will help establish primary care locations for around 18,000 residents across the state. And road rage is being blamed for a car-to-car shooting on the Southfield Freeway. State police say the driver is believed to have shot another driver on Wednesday along the freeway. Detroit police say they pulled over the alleged victim with bullet holes in his car near 8 Mile. And Fani Willis has been removed from President-elect Donald Trump's 2020 election interference case. The veteran DA was removed on Thursday. And a Seattle restaurant is reportedly home to one of the tastiest sandwiches in the nation. The Infatuation Caribbean Pork Roast Sandwich in Ballard is on the list of the 18 best sandwiches in America. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Only at Lowe's, MVP's Pro Rewards members can get a volume discount on eligible orders as low as $1,500. Discount on eligible product only and reflected in quote. Restrictions apply. See Pro Desk for details. MVP's Pro Rewards program subject to terms.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A fun night Thursday for LA sports fans. The Lakers, Clippers, and Chargers were winners. We start with the Chargers. They scored 21 straight points in the second half to beat Denver 34-27. The Chargers, now 9-6, moved up into the number 6 seed in the AFC playoffs. They can clinch a wildcard spot if Miami or Indianapolis loses on Sunday. LeBron added another record to his 21-year career in the Lakers' 113-100 win at Sacramento, the city where he played his first NBA game in 2003. LeBron passed Kareem for the most minutes played in NBA history. LeBron played 34 minutes last night, giving him a total of 57,471. Kareem had 57,446. LeBron had 19 points, 6 rebounds, and 7 assists. The Clippers beat Dallas 118-95, 29 points for Norman Powell, 24 for James Harden. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We're not just a thermometer recording and broadcasting popular opinion. We aim to be a thermostat, transforming the conversation about climate justice in our community. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk 1580.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay. Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacin-capted Pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
The revolution will not be televised.
This is Brother Cornell West. My dear brothers and sisters, I'm full of joy and delight to announce that I'm joining the precious family at KBLA Talk 1580, founded and led by my dear, dear brother Tavis Smiley himself. Yes, the name of the show is Truth Time, and I'll be working with the inimitable Nina Turner out of Cleveland, Ohio, sister of great vision, and we will be on weekdays at 12 noon. We will be following Brother Tavis Smiley's show. We will begin Monday, January the 6th. That's right, Monday, January the 6th. Get ready for a different kind of insurrection. We coming with Martin Luther King Jr. and Fannie Lou Hamer and Curtis Mayfield and Aretha Franklin, and gonna add a little Gil Scott Heron too, as Nina Simone sits at the center. That's right.
The revolution will be live.
That's what we gonna do. Please come with us on this fantastic voyage.
The revolution will put you in the driver's seat.
The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in more places that could expose you more to identity theft. But LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our US-based restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Don't face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or financial losses alone. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS. Visit lifelock.com. Terms apply.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
You got a big mouth.
Hello, Joe, you're up. Welcome.
We're unapologetically progressive, and we don't black down.
We're talking with Dr. Stephanie Myers. She is she is vice president of R.J. Myers Publishing and Consulting Company and national co-chair of Black Women for Positive Change. So you were talking about Africa. When we did the tour, the last time we did the tour of the slave dungeons in Ghana, the tour guide pretty much apologized. That's not the same as an official government apology, but what I made of that is that Africans are moving in that direction in terms of realizing that certain African nations were complicit. And when I was in the Ashanti Castle in Kumasi, you could see the guns, the weapons that were traded for people that allowed the Ashanti to dominate in their other local ethnic groups that they were in rivalry with. So it really gave me chills. So yeah, there's work to do there. But when we, looking at the British and the British Crown, one of the reasons Dick Gregory was obsessed with them is because they are so rich. They have just land for days. They have billions of dollars, which they do give a portion to the British government, but for the most part it's tax-free and they get to do whatever they want with it. And where does all that wealth come from? They didn't pull it out of a hat. But we have someone on the phone, so I want to go a little deeper into that after we go to Keys, calling us from LA. Good morning, Keys.
Good morning, Dominique and Dr. Myers. How are you ladies doing this morning?
Great, thank you. What's on your mind?
Well, what's on my mind? I love the conversation about reparations, and if the last name got me in on my maternal side and paternal side, I am on Ancestry. I've been on it for the last maybe year and a half. But I'll give you my maternal side last names on my mother's side: Johnson and Strotter. Well, Johnson, I can definitely direct that and go into slavery under that just name alone. On my father's side, it's Russell. And you got to trip on this last name, because if this name doesn't get me reparations, I don't know what will. My grandmother was Frances Cotton, and there's a lot of Cottons, and they were out
Wow.
of Texas. And I go all the way up to W.H. Mills Plantation on the cotton side.
Wow.
So,
well,
give me my
Dr. Myers.
reparations.
I mean, Dr. Myers, talk to Keys about what your journey was to get that very specific information that you shared with us.
Well, very good, Mr. Keyes. Glad you've done your research. And we have different options. You know, if we want to be really direct about it, a letter to those descendants of that Cotton family, or on my side, the different families I have, the Carragers, and the different ones, we can say to them, look, your ancestors, and we can document where the plantations were located in America, who owned them, and if they were British, or what colonies that they were in, and tell them, look, you owe us, and it may be that the federal government should put up 50%, and maybe the descendants of these wealthy families should also put up something. But finding who was the owner of our enslaved ancestors, if they were British or if they were Portuguese or Spanish or whoever they were, I think that's really important. So it's a good thing you've done your DNA and you know those last names. That's really important.
But there's so many Cottons. Like, where do you start? I mean, I guess you could start with Senator Tom Cotton. He's a big rich racist. But where do you start? When you say write to people, how do you know who to write to when there's probably thousands and thousands of Cottons?
They're all culpable.
Well, the plantation.
Sorry.
Yeah, the plantation starts at W.H. Mills is the plantation that it goes to, and then he, one of the plantation owners, had two wives, and that's where the Cottons came out of that.
Okay,
but
so
their names were Mills. So yeah, that's where I go all the way up to that plantation.
So you've you've already gotten to the plantation.
Oh, absolutely.
And Dr. Myers, you were saying, all of the Cottons are implicated. All of the white Cottons are implicated.
Well, yes, because in America today, white people have 100% more assets and wealth than black people. They have an average, I think it's $175,000 of income versus the black medium range is $17,000 for our people who are in poorer communities. So the gap of 100% of wealth is the gap that they achieved when that land was handed down. When that cotton heir received his money from his granddaddy or his father, and he received 1,000 acres of land wherever it is, that's the wealth. That's what we're talking about. That's where our people worked, whether it was in Jamaica or Grenada or Haiti or America, any of the colonies that the British owned during that 1700s period and 1600s. All of that is relevant.
Well, congratulations to you, Keys. I went to a family reunion over Thanksgiving with some relatives I didn't know, and some that I did. And one of my second cousins, a contemporary of my dad's, has a family, a family tree that goes all the way back to slavery. But what it doesn't say is what was the plantation. We know it was in South Carolina, but it doesn't say what was the plantation. So that's a really interesting next step, I guess, Dr. Myers. And thank you, Keys, for sharing your journey with us.
Absolutely, and I'll leave you.
Go ahead, Keys.
Part of my family's history, and this was from my uncle who's 84, so it's my dad. But Lewis Gates Jr., in his book, he talks about a Henry Johnson who was an opera singer. That was my great uncle.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, and Gates has been doing some interesting work on TV with people tracing their heritage and history. And famously, I think it was Ben Affleck, if I'm not mistaken, who found out that he had relatives, ancestors who were slave owners, and tried to suppress that information, tried to have his publicist intervene to have PBS not air that part of the story.
Wow. Well, white people in America, a lot of the millennials and the Gen Zs and the Generation X, they don't know, and they should know. They should know that this money that they have getting that trust account check every month is coming from the blood and sweat and tears. And I think that some of them, there's a woman named Laura Trevelyan who's with the British-American BBC, and this is a white female, and she learned about the slave ancestry of her family, the ownership of the plantation owners, and she has started a movement among descendants of plantation owners to demand that King Charles and the British admit what they did. So we have to talk to them too.
I was reading this article on the BBC, and they said, according to them, and I'm not an expert, maybe you know, they said that even if King Charles personally believed there should be reparations, and he has made reference to Canada and admired their so-called reconciliation. He didn't say reparations, he said reconciliation with Indigenous people. They're saying that he couldn't do it even if he wanted to because the monarchs are, when it comes to politics, controlled by the prime ministers and the elected government. And the elected government of England, Downing Street as it's called, has taken a hard line here, saying they won't apologize and they don't even want to talk about reparations.
Well, have to file some lawsuits against the Parliament. There have to be some strategies. And yes, I'm sure that the Parliament, just like the United States Congress, hasn't been willing to pick up H.R. 40, the bill that would have been the reparations bill. They haven't passed it. So our Congress and the British Parliament are both in the same kind of position of wanting to deny what happened.
Yeah, we're talking with Dr. Stephanie Myers. She is a scholar. She is an author of a book about Queen Charlotte and Bridgerton notwithstanding. It seems to me the royal family is mostly in denial about Queen Charlotte's blackness, which would mean that, according to our strict U.S. one-drop rule, all of them are black.
I get the biggest kick out of them naming the kids Charlotte and George. William and Kate's children are named after Queen Charlotte and King George. And do they know that they're naming them after the Queen, who was a black woman? Of course they know. But they figure everyone else is ignorant. They just keep on pulling ahead with it. But this is something that is really significant to their heritage, because Charlotte went back to the Moors. And the involvement of the Moors and just the whole global slave trade was happening during her lifetime.
Ben Frank in the chat says the UK owes, so does the Pope. France owes, Spain owes. Absolutely, that is true. And we'll continue this conversation with Dr. Stephanie Myers, and you're welcome to call in. Phone lines are open all the way to the end of the show today at 800-920-1580. And it's a holiday amnesty day, too, so you can call back if you called before. We are amplifying black and progressive voices around the clock. That's what we do. KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
Hi, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been hearing me guest host here on KBLA Talk 1580, and I'm having a blast. But I'm excited about joining the official lineup here at KBLA Talk 1580 starting Monday, January 6th at 1 p.m. Start your day with First Things First and Dominique DiPrima at 6 a.m. Check out Tavis Smiley at 9 a.m. Tune into Truth Time with Dr. Cornell West and Nina Turner at 12 noon, and then tap in with me on The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show at 1 p.m. weekdays. I served 17 years in the U.S. Congress, and I can tell you it's going to be a rough 4 years, so let's navigate this journey together. It's The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, starting Monday, January 6th at 1 p.m. on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Tips to help improve basic steps for building a budget in 2024. Building a budget can help you achieve and reach your financial goals. With a budget, you can keep track of your spending, avoid and get out of debt, limit overspending, pay bills on time, and build solid savings habits. What's the best way to get started? Figure out how much to set aside for expenses, like rent, mortgage, bills, groceries, and entertainment. Understanding your past financial habits can help you make the proper adjustments for your budget. Adjusting to a budget can take time as you work to find the right balance, but keep working on it. For more financial health tips, visit chase.com or stop by a local branch. This segment is sponsored by J.P. Morgan Chase & Company.
Add confidence to every holiday adventure and get it done with a rugged and capable Chevy truck or SUV. Now during Red Tag, get 0% APR financing for 36 months on select Chevy models when you finance with GM Financial. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
Offer available on all 2025 Equinox and 2024 Equinox EV, Blazer EV, and Silverado EV models. Monthly payment is $27.78 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment is 26.8%. You must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 1/2/25.
With reported hate crimes rising in recent years, California has responded through outreach efforts across state government and in collaboration with community-based organizations for the launch of CA versus Hate. This non-emergency, multilingual hate crime and incident reporting hotline provides an anonymous reporting option for victims and witnesses of hate acts reported in 15 different languages through the online portal and in over 200 languages when calling the hotline. Report anonymously by calling 833-866-4283 Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. or online at any time at cavshate.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
Welcome back on a Freedmen Friday. We decided to look at a little bit at the UK and what they owe, the royal family, the monarchy, in particular. Dr. Stephanie Myers is the author of Invisible Queen. It's a book about Queen Charlotte, who was the Queen of England for 57 years and had, as you pointed out, Moorish black ancestry. And you can see it in the old portraits of her. So apparently there was a convention, a convening of Commonwealth, heads of the Commonwealth, this fall. And they drafted a communique from heads of various Commonwealth nations that were subject to chattel slavery and other colonial wealth extraction measures. And they're calling for discussions on reparatory justice with regard to the transatlantic trade in enslaved Africans and chattel enslavement. These heads of state agreeing that the time has come for meaningful, truthful, and respectful conversation towards forging a common future based on equity. It says the heads of the government would play an active role in bringing about such inclusive conversation, addressing these harms, to prioritize additional research on the trade in enslaved Africans that encourages and supports conversations informing a way forward. They're talking about reparations. This is something the UK did not want. They did not want any language in this communique about reparatory justice, but the heads of the Commonwealth defied them and issued this communique anyway. This was in October. They also talk about something called blackbirding, where Pacific Islanders were tricked or kidnapped into to come to the UK for slave labor or cheap labor. So now they're saying that the diplomats are saying now, because of this communique, that the next 2 years of the Commonwealth Summit will probably be focused on reparations. I don't know
Well, this is
go ahead.
This is really good. I'm glad to hear what's going on. But what we have to ask is, what can the people do to help? And right now in the world, social media and campaigning are very, very powerful. So in order to support this Commonwealth initiative, to support the work that people are doing to try to bring the UK to realize that they need to provide reparations to the 14 countries that they supported slavery in, we need our musicians to write songs on this. We need our filmmakers to produce films about what the UK's role was in worldwide slavery. We need to use artificial intelligence and create social media messages on TikTok and Instagram. And, if we're really serious, then we have to support them. Them having a conference, that's great. People have conferences and they issue reports, and that's all great. But now, today in the world, it's all about who does the messaging and how they do it and how powerful that messaging is. So if they're going to meet, then when they meet, the weeks leading up to that meeting, the public needs to be made aware. In the UK, in America, in the Caribbean, in Africa, and now with all the media that we have access to, it's easy to do. We just have to get these incredibly talented people, and of course, Dominique, we're privileged because here in Los Angeles, you've got some of the most talented people in the world. They just need to sit down and form a reparations messaging campaign, and let's get it done.
Yeah. There was a report published by the University of West Indies, which was backed by a judge, a member of the International Court of Justice named Patrick Robinson. And they concluded in this report that the UK owes $18 trillion in reparations for its role in slavery to those 14 Caribbean nations that you just mentioned. $18 trillion. I can understand why, with the UK's current economic woes, the Downing Street is taking a hard line no on reparations.
Well, they don't have to pay it all in one day. The reparations they paid to the plantation owners, they just finished in 2015. It doesn't all have to be paid in one day. But the organization I head, Black Women for Positive Change, we certainly believe in the need to stop the culture of violence and the fact that our people were suffering and that had to live in poverty, and that our young people today are suffering from lack of health care, lack of money to go to school, lack of being able to own your own home. That leads to frustration, anger, and violence. And if we could get some kind of equity financially in our families, in England and in the Caribbean and in America, in our black families, it could change everything. People would not be as desperate and as angry and as ready to pick up that gun and go shoot. And not only black families are caught up in this violence, white families are too. Now, I know drawing a relationship between reparations and violence, some people will say, well, there's no relationship there. Well, there is. The failure of our communities to receive what they were entitled to in terms of wealth and money and land has a direct connection to the increased violence that we're seeing in our streets and our homes and our families in the UK and around the world.
Friday Jones says, when you look at King James Constantine agreement to consolidate power under religion, the UK monarchy, the Roman Catholic Church, all owe reparations. Do you agree with that statement, Dr. Myers?
Absolutely, absolutely. And in America, the white Christian nationalist movement, which also came out of England 300 years ago, is a part of that as well. You know, look at this young girl who just shot 2 people in Wisconsin earlier this week. This was a Christian school she was attending. So religion is a part of the anger, and there's some things going on within the religious community that definitely need to be looked at and brought into this dialogue, no question.
And whether we know it or not, these things are on the move. Jamaica's Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs, Marlene Malahu Forte, introduced a bill last week in Parliament that would remove King Charles III as the ceremonial head of state and install a Jamaican president. It will also update the Constitution to remove the monarchy.
Wow. Well, that's pretty aggressive. Well, good. There's a lot going on. And the fact that these people, because of their birthright, can be born into a royal family that has billions of dollars, it's just not fair. It's not right. And it needs to be changed. If they want to continue on as the monarchy symbolically, that's one thing. But to continue with this kind of wealth that continues to impact the world, it's just not fair.
Well, their symbolism is mighty expensive. The Prime Minister of the Bahamas says he wants frank slavery reparations talks with the UK's Prime Minister. He says there should be a come-to-Jesus moment. His name is Philip Davis. And now Herschel Walker is about to be appointed ambassador to the Bahamas.
My goodness,
so
yes.
a train wreck on the horizon in reparations.
Well, we've got to be on top of these things because this deportation that is being introduced when the newly elected president takes over, this deportation may have a relationship to the security of people of color in America and in the islands and in Africa. We don't know how it's going to go, but we know that there are people there who want to trace people's heritage, and then they may say, well, if you're half West Indian and half Black American, that doesn't count. You know, you have to go back to wherever. We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So we've got to be on top of all of this.
Share your website, Dr. Myers.
Well, for people who are interested in our book, Invisible Queen, they go to myerspublishing.com. And that's where that is. For Black Women for Positive Change, they can visit us at that website. And every year we have a month of nonviolence where we try to bring up these issues that are impacting our community. So blackwomenforpositivechange.com or myerspublishing.com.
Well, Dr. Myers, thank you so much for joining us on a Freedmen Friday. And if you're looking for it, it's MYERS. Don't put that other E in there, MYERS. Dr. Myers, thank you so much.
And thank you for your leadership, Dominique. Really appreciate it. Wonderful conversation.
Open phones next. KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Natasha Williams. Here's 4 things you should know from BIN News. The Maryland Department of Health has announced $19 million in funding to expand primary care access in underserved areas. The funding will help establish primary care locations for around 18,000 residents across the state. And road rage is being blamed for a car-to-car shooting on the Southfield Freeway. State police say the driver is believed to have shot another driver on Wednesday along the freeway. Detroit police say they pulled over the alleged victim with bullet holes in his car near 8 Mile. And Fani Willis has been removed from President-elect Donald Trump's 2020 election interference case. The veteran DA was removed on Thursday. And a Seattle restaurant has reported sandwiches in America. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Only at Lowe's, MVP